A few months ago, I was working my usual night shift as a nurse. I was 32 and had been at this old hospital for years. I liked it mostly. There was something comforting about the routine, even though the place was cramped and buzzing with fluorescent lights. On my first night back, I was walking past the pediatric ward when I heard laughter. It was faint, but I froze. The ward was empty. There were no kids around. Just quiet. I felt chilly, and a knot twisted in my stomach. I told myself it was probably just my imagination, but it didn't completely leave me. The next night, I spotted some toys in the hallway, small stuffed animals I didn't remember seeing before. It was strange. I picked one up, feeling its soft texture. I glanced around. No one was there, just the humming of machines. My heart raced. I thought about it all day. I didn't want to believe it was something eerie, but part of me was starting to worry. By the third night, the situation grew creepier. I was in a patient S room, checking vital signs when I heard the giggling again. It came from the empty playroom across the hall. I wished I could ignore it, but it sent shivers down my spine. I glanced outside the door, my hands shaking. The flickering light overhead created shadows that seemed to shift. My thoughts spiraled. What was happening? I wanted to call someone, but who would believe me? As I made my way back to the nurse's station, I saw a shadow dart by the playroom door from the corner of my eye. I turned to look, but it was gone. I was starting to doubt myself. I asked some coworkers about the sounds, but they just laughed it off. "You're just tired, Jamie," they said between snickers. I felt uneasy and more alone. That night, I was hyper-aware of everything around me. I didn't want to be alone. Shortly after midnight, the overhead lights flickered again, and the laughter rang louder. Felt like it was right behind me. My pulse quickened. I turned to leave but caught a glimpse of something, a shadow standing by the playroom door. It vanished before I could blink. I stood frozen, questioning my own senses. Could it be my mind playing tricks? Why was nobody else seeing or hearing this? I wanted to scream, to have someone else acknowledge this strange presence. But my voice wouldn't come out. I decided to finish my rounds. Each step I took felt heavy with dread. As I walked past the playroom, I heard the laughter again. This time it was clearer, more inviting. I wanted to run but felt rooted in place. I could only stare ahead, praying my shift would end soon. But deep down, I knew I'd never forget those sounds, and I really didn't know what they meant. The next night, I arrived at the hospital with a gnawing sense of dread. I parked my car under the flickering streetlight and took a deep breath as I stepped inside. The fluorescent lights greeted me with their relentless hum. I tried to shake off the eerie memories from the last shift, but they clung to me like a wet blanket. I started my rounds, checking in on patients and documenting notes. My mind wandered back to the laughter. I couldn't shake the need to investigate. After I finished with my assigned rooms, I made my way to the pediatric ward once again. The corridor felt different tonight, darker, almost oppressive. As I neared the playroom, I heard it again, the laughter. This time it was clearer, echoing as if a child was having fun right inside. I hesitated, frozen for a moment before deciding to push the door open. The room was just as I remembered. Colorful walls, scattered toys, and empty chairs. The laughter faded to a soft giggle that reverberated across the walls. My heart raced. I felt like an intruder in a place that should have been abandoned. I stood in the doorway, scanning the room. Then, my eyes landed on something on the floor. A little girl's dress, pale blue with white lace trim, lay crumpled at the far corner. I stepped closer, my hands trembling. It was dirty, as if it had been dragged around. Panic surged within me. Who had left it here? Where were the children? As I turned to leave, a toy rolled out from behind a chair. It was a tiny car, and it stopped right at my feet. I jumped back, my breath hitching in my throat. I bent down slowly to pick it up, hoping to find some clue. The car was warm, as if it had just been played with. My thoughts raced. Was someone here? That S when I heard it again, the laughter. This time it was louder, unmistakably coming from behind me. I whipped around, my heart hammering. The space felt alive, buzzing with energy. The laughter rang out again, teasing me, beckoning me to follow it. Fear seized me, but so did curiosity. I stepped back toward the playroom door, and as I did, I felt a cold breeze sweep through the room, freezing the air. I turned to look, adrenaline spiking through my veins. The door slammed shut behind me. I gasped, my heart pounding like a war drum. I was trapped. I pulled on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The laughter turned to a cacophony of giggles, almost manic as I pounded on the door. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered out one by one until I was enveloped in shadows. A chill crawled up my spine, and I heard whispering, soft and unintelligible. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel the presence around me. Suddenly, the door swung open with a loud creak. I stumbled backward, nearly falling. As the lights flickered back on, I found myself staring into the empty hallway. The laughter had vanished, replaced by an unsettling silence. I looked back into the playroom, its cheerful splendor now a haunting image. I stood there, gasping for breath, questions flooding my mind. Was anyone even there? I had to know. I had to find out why I was being drawn into this mystery. But as I took a step forward, a voice whispered my name, and my heart sank. The night was far from over. I nearly tripped over my own feet as I backed away from the door. The silence was deafening. I needed to gather my thoughts. This couldn't be happening. I glanced down the corridor, illuminated by flickering lights. I took a deep breath, hoping to steady my racing heart, and started walking slowly, cautiously. I made my way back to the nurse's station, scanning the empty hallways one last time before I stepped inside. My colleagues were mostly busy with paperwork, their eyes glued to computer screens. They seemed unaware of the bizarre occurrences I had just experienced. I needed to say something to someone, but I hesitated. Would they believe me? Would they think I was losing it? As I settled into my chair, I stole a glance at the clock. It was only 2 a.m. I had a long night ahead of me. I tried to focus on my notes, but the image of that crumpled dress haunted me. Who did it belong to? I finally made the decision to look for answers. I needed to dig deeper. I excused myself from the station and headed towards the pediatric ward again. Each step felt heavier, my instincts screaming at me to turn back. But the nagging curiosity pushed me forward. I had to uncover the truth. As I entered the ward, the atmosphere shifted. It was quieter than before. Only the faint beeping of machines broke the stillness. I walked to the playroom, half expecting something to happen again. My heart sank when I opened the door. The room looked completely unchanged, as if it were an ordinary space and nothing strange ever happened. The air was stale, but that eerie feeling lingered, curling around me like fingers. I knelt down and examined the blue dress again, running my fingers over the fabric. Just then, a slight thud came from behind me. I froze, peering into the shadows that clung to the edges of the room. My heart raced again. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing slightly. Silence. Then, out of nowhere, I saw a shadow flitting past the window, fleeting but distinct. I whipped around, squinting against the dim light. It was gone. Had I imagined it? My breath caught in my throat, a knot forming in my stomach. I had to know. Leaving the room, I followed the path toward the window. I could feel a strange pull, urging me to look outside. The cold glass felt like a barrier between the known and the unknown. I peered out, but the darkness pooled below the windowsill. I couldn't see anything but the flickering streetlights outside. That's when I noticed the reflections. Faces. Haunted eyes stared back at me, fleeting and restless. My heart lurched. I leaned closer, pressing my forehead against the glass. Just as I moved, the lights flickered, plunging the room back into darkness. Panic gripped me. I turned, heart pounding, and saw something move in the corner. A slight figure low to the ground, too small, too quick. Then it laughed again, a sharp, echoing sound that cut through the darkness. My breath quickened. I stepped back, bumping into the desk as I spun around. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice trembling. But the laughter turned to whispers again, fading until the only sound was my own ragged breathing. Just as I was about to move, I heard a childish voice say my name, sweet and soft, but it sent a chill down my spine. Come play with us. Desperation clawed at me. I had to escape this nightmare. As I glanced back at the window, I realized the reflection had changed. It was now a group of small figures, their faces distorted with glee. I had to leave. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut again. I was trapped. I pounded on the door, panic clouding my thoughts. Let me out, I shouted, but it didn't budge. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a vortex. Come play with us. The laughter rang out again, sinister and taunting. I pressed my back against the cold wall, heart hammering. I was losing my grip on reality. I glanced around the dim room, looking for any escape. My eyes settled on a small ventilation grate high on the wall. It wasn't a perfect plan, but at that moment, anything felt better than being a plaything in this twisted game. I scrambled over the desk, stretching my fingers toward the grate. My heart sank. It was tightly secured. Why won't you play? The childish voice echoed, laced with a hint of malice. Just then, the lights flickered back on, revealing the playroom in its mundane state. The childish toys sat eerily still, yet I sensed movement just out of my vision. I tore my gaze away from the shadows, focusing on the door again. I needed a way out. Suddenly, a chill swept through the room. I turned, and there, in the corner, was the small figure I had seen before. It was almost as if it were waiting for me. A girl wearing the same blue dress, its fabric tattered and dirty. Her hair hung in disarray, shadowing her eyes. You're too slow, she whispered, a grin spreading across her face. Who are you? I stammered, my voice trembling. What do you want? The girl didn't answer. Instead, she beckoned me closer, her finger curling invitingly. Unable to resist, I stepped forward against every instinct urging me to run. I'll show you, she said, her voice almost melodic but tinged with a darkness I couldn't ignore. It felt as if the walls themselves pulsed with anticipation. Then, without warning, the toys around us sprang to life. Action figures danced, dolls turned their heads, and the stuffed animals stared with vacant smiles. It was surreal and terrifying. I yanked my gaze back to the girl, seeing something behind her, something dark pulling at the edges of my vision. A deeper shadow stretched out in the corner, whispering my name, darker and more menacing. Play, it commanded, and I felt it reaching for me. Ignoring the pounding in my chest, I turned back to the door. Let me out. I screamed again, but my desperation only seemed to amuse the unseen terror. The girl's grin widened even further, revealing teeth too sharp to be normal. Then the lights went out again, plunging the playroom into a thick, oppressive darkness. I could hear the soft padding of footsteps around me, growing closer. My heart raced. No, not again, I thought. In that moment of insanity, I felt a flicker of determination surge through me. I had to get through that door. Grabbing the nearest item, a plush bear, I hurled it towards the door. It hit with a soft thud, the sound echoing in the stillness. Then I heard a metallic clink. The door handle jerked slightly. I rushed to it, throwing my weight against it with all my strength. The door opened just enough for me to slip through. I didn't look back. As I stumbled into the corridor, gasping for breath, the faint whispers faded, but a sense of dread followed me. I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. With trembling hands, I decided to head toward the exit. I needed to find someone who would believe me, but as I turned the corner, I froze. A young girl stood at the end of the hallway. Her pale face was framed by dark shadows. She was wearing a blue dress. Why didn't you come play with us? She whispered, and I realized I wasn't out of danger yet. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my ears. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly behind me, but that devilish girl stood firm, blocking my way. I felt trapped again, like prey in a hunter's gaze. What do you want? I managed to say, my voice shaky. Come play, she repeated, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. A chill ran down my spine. Was she another spirit, part of this twisted nightmare? I glanced back, weighing my options. I could retreat down the hallway or confront her, but neither seemed like a good choice. "Leave me alone," I shouted, hoping to sound braver than I felt. She merely tilted her head, as if my words amused her. The air crackled with tension, and I noticed the faint stench of decay wafting from her direction. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my feet were glued to the floor. I took a shaky breath and glanced to my right, searching for another escape. The walls loomed ever closer, closing in on me. Then it hit me I had to keep moving. Gathering every ounce of courage, I darted past her, ignoring her mocking laughter as I rounded the next corner. I ran down the hall, heart racing. Just as I thought I had escaped, I stumbled into the flickering light of another room. Before I could catch my breath, I noticed something strange on the floor. Toys. Broken bits scattered like breadcrumbs leading deeper into the room. My instincts told me to turn back, but curiosity tugged me closer to a large door at the end of the chamber. It looked more menacing than anything I had encountered so far, patched together with rust and faded paint. Was it a door to safety or another trap? With shaky hands, I turned the handle. It creaked open, revealing a darkened space. I hesitated, peering inside. That S when I saw it, an old toy chest, half open and festooned with cobwebs. It beckoned me like a siren's call. Something inside it felt significant. I stepped into the room and crouched by the chest. As I leaned closer, I could sense a weight pressing down on me. The air felt charged with electricity. I gripped the edge and pulled it open. My breath caught in my throat. The chest was filled with dusty dolls, all with eyes wide open, blank and lifeless like they were waiting for something. Then, I heard a whisper, soft yet sharp as shattered glass. "Play with us." My heart seemed to freeze. I turned, expecting to find the girl behind me, but the room was empty, filled only with the silent gaze of the dolls. I scrambled to my feet, panic surging. I backed away toward the door, but before I could reach it, the lights flickered again. Shadows danced across the walls, distorting into grotesque shapes that crawled towards me. I didn't want to see what they would become. Suddenly, the dolls began to twitch, their expressions morphing into grins. The words "come play" echoed around me again, louder this time, vibrating through my bones. I sprinted for the door, flinging it open and stumbling back into the hallway. Everything fell silent as I closed the door behind me. Breathing heavily, I leaned against it for just a moment, but then I heard the distinct sound of giggling coming from behind it. There was no escaping this nightmare. I had to find someone, anyone, to help me unravel this madness before it consumed me whole. As I pressed myself against the door, trying to catch my breath, I was struck by a new sound echoing through the hallway, a soft, persistent tapping. It seeped into my mind like a haunting tune. With every tap, my heart raced anew, but I couldn't just stay here and wait for whatever was coming next. I turned, forcing myself to move down the corridor, the echoes of the girl's laughter still ringing in my ears. My goal was simple: find a door that led outside. I had to escape this twisted maze. The hallway felt longer now, the flickering lights casting dark shadows that danced along the walls. As I hurried forward, I noticed a door on my left. This one was slightly ajar. Instinctively, I knew I had to check it out. I pushed the door open slowly, wincing as it creaked. The room was familiar, filled with the sterile smell of antiseptic and the white glare of fluorescent lights. This was a break room, likely once a refuge for weary staff. Now it felt like a crypt, eerie and still. I stepped inside, feeling a slight sense of comfort in the mundane, a stark contrast to the chaotic hell outside. But that comfort quickly faded as I looked around. The table was cluttered with old magazines and a half-empty coffee cup. Yet something else caught my eye. On the wall, a hospital call button, usually a symbol of safety, was blinking rhythmically. The green light pulsed like a heartbeat. Against my better judgment, I approached it. I wasn't supposed to be here, and yet my feet moved closer. I pressed the button. A loud buzz reverberated through the walls, jarring me. Felt wrong. Nothing happened at first, but then I noticed a shadow moving in the corner of my eye. I whipped around to find a figure hunched in the corner, a nurse in a crumpled uniform. She appeared to be writing something frantically in a notebook, her movements erratic. The sight made my stomach churn. "Excuse me?" I tried to sound steady, but my voice broke. The nurse looked up, her eyes wide with fear, and then abruptly stood, dropping her notebook with a flutter. It landed face down, the pages shuffling as if caught in a gust. "Leave, you shouldn't be here," she hissed. There was a panic in her gaze. I took a step back, confused by her urgency. "Why not? What's going on?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. I wanted answers, yet all I got was her frightened expression. "You don't understand," she stammered, glancing over her shoulder as if checking for someone or something. "You have to run, before it finds you." I looked down at the notebook she had dropped. There, peeking from under the pages, was a crumpled piece of paper. I couldn't help myself. I reached down and tugged it free. As I unfolded it, my breath caught. It read, "The playtime is never over. It watches you in the dark." Before I could digest that chilling message, everything went black. The lights flickered out, plunging me into an oppressive darkness. I felt the temperature drop, and the air stilled. I knew the shadows were moving closer. Panic surged within me, and I stumbled backward, my back hitting the door with a thud. I couldn't remain here. I had to find a way out before whatever was lurking in the dark caught up to me. I pushed against the door, forcing it open and tumbling into the hallway. The darkness was thick, almost suffocating, and my heart raced as I fumbled for something, anything, to guide me. I squinted, trying to make out the faint outlines of the wall as I inched forward. The tapping sound returned, and each echo seemed to whisper my name. I needed to escape this nightmare. I couldn't dwell on the nurse's warning or the message about the playtime. I had to keep moving. I turned sharply down the corridor, its familiar curves now feeling like a labyrinth. The shadows seemed to stretch and lean, as if they were alive and reaching out for me. With every step, my pulse surged, and I forced myself to breathe, focusing on nothing but the next door. Just ahead, I saw a light, weak and flickering, but a beacon nonetheless. I rushed toward it, hoping it would lead me to safety. When I reached the door, I hesitated. This one was locked. Frustrated, I rattled the knob, but it offered no resistance. Just as I was about to give up, a chilling breeze swept through the hall. It carried with it the faintest sound, the laughter of children. The sound pulled me back, grounding me in a reality I didn't want to face. I staggered backward, my mind racing. This hospital was supposed to be a place of healing. How could it sound like a playground? My fingers traced the cold metal of the handle, desperate for a way out. As I searched, I spotted another door a few feet away. I had no choice. I darted for it, throwing it open with impatience. It was another break room, this one even darker than the last. The air was thick with an unsettling silence. I could barely make out shapes against the walls, the remnants of lunch breaks long forgotten. I gulped down my fear, taking a step inside. Before I could assess my surroundings, another flash of movement caught my eye. A shadow flitted past the corner of the room, and I turned sharply. Just a trick of the light, I told myself. But then I saw it again, something small, darting behind the coffee machine. My breath hitched as a sense of dread settled over me. Was it real? I had to know. With cautious steps, I approached the machine, my eyes scanning for any sign of movement. And then, as if sensing my presence, it appeared. A small, disheveled doll, its button eyes gleaming in the dim light, stared back at me. It was dressed in a tattered hospital gown that matched the uniform of the staff. I bent down, heart hammering as I reached for it. But as soon as my fingers touched the fabric, the lights flickered once more, casting the room into deep shadows. "Get away from her," a voice suddenly screeched. I spun around to see the nurse from before, her face twisted in a frantic expression. "You don't understand. Leave it alone." Startled, I dropped the doll. It hit the floor with a thud, and in that moment, the lights burst back to life. My heart sank. The doll was gone. Only the empty space remained where it had fallen. In that stark moment, it hit me whatever was happening in this place was deeply wrong, and I was caught in its web. I needed to escape, but I had no idea where to go or what was still waiting for me in the shadows. Just then, the walls began to tremble, a low moan echoing through the room. I stood frozen, fear coiling in my gut as I realized the playtime was only just beginning. I stumbled back from the coffee machine, the weight of the world on my shoulders. The nurse had vanished like a mist, leaving me alone in a room that felt increasingly alive, vibrating with a sinister energy. I needed to find a way out, but my instincts screamed to stay put. I turned back to the door, praying it would open, but it remained stubbornly locked. Panic clenched my chest. The laughter echoed again, louder this time, intertwining with the low groan of the walls. I bit my lip, trying to silence my racing thoughts. Why was this happening? What had this place turned into? I stepped toward the door leading out. Just then, I noticed something smeared on the floor, a trail of dark red leading back to the corner where I had seen the doll. I swallowed hard, afraid to inspect it closely. Was it blood? I scratched my head, wrestling with my fear, but the curiosity gnawed at me. I had to know. As I crouched down to investigate, the sound of a soft thud broke the silence. I looked up quickly, heart racing. Something or someone was in the shadows. I peered into the corner, my breath hitched as I saw the outline of a small figure hunched low. "Hello?" I croaked out, my voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to flee, but my body wouldn't listen. The figure didn't move, and dread swelled within me. "Can you help me? Please." I waited, but the figure remained still, as if waiting for me to make the first move. I clenched my fists, reminding myself that I had come this far. I crawled closer, straining to see more clearly. The silhouette was slightly illuminated by the flickering lights. Then it turned its head. I gasped, suppressing the urge to scream. It was a small child with wide, hollow eyes and a grin that seemed too wide for its face, stretching impossibly across its features. The doll's grin had mimicked this one only moments ago. "Playtime," it whispered, a sing-song lilt to its voice that sent shivers down my spine. I darted away, reformulating my escape plan with every heartbeat. I needed to get out of this place before the laughter grew louder and swallowed me whole. I shoved against the door again, my shoulder pressing hard against the cold metal. Just as I prepared to give another solid push, the lights flickered and went out. Complete darkness engulfed me, and an icy breath brushed my neck. The air was thick, almost choking me. I stumbled backward, colliding with something solid. I flinched, my heart hammering, forcing myself to breathe. I had to find a way when I heard it again, the laughter, now distant but creeping closer. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my wits and find another way out. "I will not stay here," I muttered through clenched teeth. As I took a few tentative steps in what I hoped was the right direction, a voice whispered my name, chilling my blood. Then, a flicker of light danced back to life, revealing the corridor ahead. I felt a surge of urgency. I had to move. I sprinted toward the next door I could find, each step echoing through the stillness. I could hear them now, the children's voices, calling out to me, as if they were waiting for merely a game to resume. Then everything went dark again. I froze in the sudden blackness, my heart racing. Memories of the shadowy figure still gripped my mind. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. The laughter echoed faintly again, a mocking reminder that something was still here with me. With trembling hands, I fumbled for my phone. The screen lit up the small area around me, casting cold, eerie shadows. I glanced down the corridor, which seemed longer than it was moments ago. There were doors everywhere, numbered like a twisted hotel. I couldn't make out the numbers. They blurred in the dim light. Then I noticed another sound. It was a faint tapping, rhythmic and deliberate, like fingernails on wood. My stomach twisted. I switched the phone's flashlight on, directing the beam down the hall. When I saw it, a door slightly ajar at the end. I couldn't hear the tapping anymore, and a heavy silence filled the space, amplifying my breathing. I hesitated. Something drew me closer, like a moth to a flame. The door called to me with a promise of escape, or maybe it was just my imagination. I moved toward it, each step echoing louder than the last. The laughter faded away, replaced by whispers. "Come play," they seemed to say, winding around me like smoke. I reached the door, pushing it open with my foot. It creaked ominously, and I steeled myself for whatever lay inside. The light from my phone revealed a small room, dim and cluttered. Old toys and hospital supplies were strewn across the floor, a mix of innocence and neglect. As I scanned the room, my gaze landed on a stuffed bear propped against the wall. Its eyes glinted in the flashlight, uncomfortably lifelike. I took a step forward, captivated. Suddenly, the bear fell over, landing on its side, and I jolted back. My instincts kicked in. Couldn't he just fall by itself? A figure emerged from behind the bear, just a shadow at first, but then a small child appeared, giggling. My stomach dropped. This was no game. "Will you play with us?" the voice asked, syrupy sweet and haunting. I stepped back, adrenaline flooding my system. "No," I shouted, but the words were lost in the echoes. My mind raced. How many children were here? Could they be real? I turned to run back to the hallway, but the door slammed shut. I was trapped. Panic surged through me as the laughter returned, taunting and relentless. I pounded on the door, my breaths becoming short and frantic. "Let me out," I screamed. The shadows around me danced, closing in as if laughing at my fear. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the laughter ceased. The silence was even more disturbing than the cacophony before. I banged on the door one last time, and that S when I saw it on the floor, a flash of something shiny. It glimmered under the faint light of my phone. I squatted down, hardly believing what I was seeing. A small key lay at my feet, glistening like a beacon of hope. But whose key was it? What did it unlock? I grabbed it, heart pounding with a mix of dread and the tiniest glimmer of hope. Suddenly, a whisper floated through the air. "You should have stayed." The door shook, then flew open, spilling me into the corridor. I staggered out, clutching the key in my palm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that my night was far from over. I stumbled back into the corridor, the oppressive silence seeming to swallow me whole. The dim lights flickered sporadically above, each time casting long, ghostly shadows that danced along the walls. I could still feel the echoes of laughter rustling in the air behind me, heavy with anticipation. But something had shifted. I felt a strange sense of purpose triggered by the small key still clutched in my hand. I had to find out what it unlocked. Sliding my phone into my pocket for additional light, I took a deep breath, steadying my heartbeat. I had been through too much to turn back now. I scanned the long hallway, my pulse quickening as I approached a large door marked storage. A sliver of hope sparked within me. Could it lead to answers or maybe even a way out? I reached the door, my hand trembling as I slid the key into the rusty lock. It fit snugly but required force to turn. With rapid breaths, I shoved my shoulder against the door, bracing myself for whatever might lie on the other side. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit storage room filled with dusty medical equipment, old toys, and forgotten memories that stirred something deep inside me. The air felt thick, laden with the weight of lost years. My heart sank as a memory crept back of children who never left this place, their laughter replaced by silence. I stepped inside, the key still warm in my palm. My eyes darted around, half expecting another shadow to leap out at me. As the door closed behind me with another chilling groan, I moved deeper into the room. I needed to search to learn what connected me to their world. In the corner, stacked high, were boxes overflowing with abandoned belongings. As I rifled through the dusty relics, I came across something that made me freeze, a photo album with a cracked cover. My hands trembled as I opened it. The pages were filled with images of smiling children in that very hospital, each face shining with pure joy. Yet, as I flipped through, the smiles turned to sad frowns. The last few images were different. The children were peering out through the window, their eyes heavy with sorrow. The very same eyes I had witnessed staring back at me from the darkness. And in the bottom corner of that final photo, a date. A year ago. Their spirits hadn't moved on. They were stuck here, trapped in some kind of grotesque playtime. A cold chill ran down my spine. "Why are you still here?" I murmured helplessly. I could almost hear them whispering to me, their laughter morphing into cries for help, an invitation to step deeper into their realm. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, and shadows elongated into monstrous forms. "Play with us," echoed around me, a call infused with desperation, mingled with a darkness that sent an icy chill through my veins. It was a sound so insistent that I felt my resolve diminish. I crept toward the door, my heart pounding furiously, but before I could grasp the handle, I felt a rush of cold air. The door slammed shut in front of me, the echo reverberating like an ominous heartbeat. My gut twisted with fear as the laughter returned, surrounding me, enveloping me. "Join us," it beckoned. Shadows moved with intent, creeping closer. I could see fleeting silhouettes of children swirling around me, their eyes filled with yearning, pleading. "No!" My voice rang out, and I spun around, scanning for an exit. The only way I could escape was through the window shrouded in darkness. Gathering all my strength, I ran to it. I could see outside the stars twinkling far away just beyond my grasp. With every ounce of determination, I pushed against the window. Just a little more, I urged myself, the call of the children growing louder, more chaotic. "Just let me out." The window swung open, and for a split second, I felt hope. But before I could escape, fingers gripped my shoulders from behind, a grip both soft and icy. "You can't leave," a familiar voice whispered, indistinct yet achingly familiar. In that moment, the children erupted into laughter, taunting and savage. I glanced back at the swirling shadows of their forms, my resolve crumbling under the weight of their plea. I had to escape, but would I ever be able to leave them behind? I leapt through the window, tumbling into the cool night air, crashing down onto the grass below. A sigh of relief washed over me, but the laughter still echoed in my mind as I clumsily pushed myself to my feet. I could still feel their eyes on me, still hear their distant calls. As I sprinted away from the hospital, I couldn't bear to look back. Even as I reached my car and fumbled for the keys, the weight of the unanswered questions burdened me. What had happened to those children? Were they trapped forever? And though I escaped the horror that night, I knew that a part of their laughter would haunt me, lingering in the back of my mind like a broken lullaby. I drove away, but one lingering question echoed through my thoughts. How many more remained?